Amen. Can we just thank the Lord for what he's done in this place tonight already? Man, and I know if you're a first-time guest, you're like, man, that was, 4 songs in a row, and now we got like 5 people up on stage. What's going on? Well, this is a completely different kind of night, and here's why. Here's why we like to do this every year, is we do this thing called Tailgate Tuesday, but we celebrate what God's done. So this might not be a normal kind of week where we have somebody come up here and preach from God's Word, but this is a continuation of worship because we're going to celebrate what God has done in these friends' lives, but they represent so much more. I was actually reflecting. I didn't really realize this until I was sitting down there, but 5 years ago this night, we launched small groups for the first time in our young adult ministry because we were brand new, and so we were fired up because we launched brand new groups. We went from 0 groups to 4 small groups at the social 5 years ago this night. And just all that God has done, it's been incredible. And all throughout Scripture, you see times where God's people stopped and they reflected back on his goodness, reflected back on our story and testimony, whether that was with 12 stones or whether that was a festival. And so that's basically what tonight is we're celebrating out there all that God's doing, but we wanted to take it on the stage, introduce to you some friends, and just hear what God has done in and through this community. So I have a few people with me tonight. We got Tim, we got Ashlyn, we got Carson, and Izzy. So hey, will y'all just welcome them tonight? And we all got the memo except for one of the dark colored shirt.
Somebody had to change it.
Somebody had to bring some fun here tonight.
Yeah,
And here's why I just want to honor them real quick is because these are people who've gone all in. And we want to just hear from them of what God's done in their life and through this community and just be encouraged tonight. And hopefully if you are new or if you've been around for a while, I know that you can gain something from tonight. So, hey, here's how I want to open us up tonight is I want you to just kind of go through and talk about how did you get connected? What was it like when you first became part of the social? So,
cool. I'm Tim, by the way. So when I first got connected to the social, good question. It was last year, actually. I believe my first time was probably Tailgate Tuesday. Got connected through the small group, got invited to a small group. Really kind of hadn't been involved in church before. Had been to church, been doing the Sunday kind of deal. And then got invited to a small group and decided to take a chance and give that a shot. And met a great group of guys that kind of really filled me with the Spirit. Have been walking with me ever since. And they invited me to something called the social. I had no idea what it was. Really daunting walking in. I thought it was kind of like a retreat kind of a deal, like just like a young adult hangout. Didn't know it was a full-on experience. And I think just the Lord has kind of shown himself in miraculous ways through this experience. So I've loved it here.
And everybody has a different kind of first-time experience. And we talk about this a lot as a dream team. So all of our volunteers, we talk about what that was like. So for you, Tim, walking into this place, what was your experience? You already knew some guys coming in.
I knew some guys, but I didn't know everybody else. And I felt like, I walked in, everybody knew everybody. Like you walk in and you see everybody shaking hands, everybody's in like deep conversation, they're laughing, having a good time. I'm walking in with like 3 guys and I'm like, hey guys, I'm just gonna stick to you. I'm not gonna walk anywhere else. I was a little nervous and I'm a little bit introverted myself from time to time. And so it was just easy to hang back in the rafters and hang back and watch what everybody else and people watch for sure. But I think the opportunities arose to kind of just get involved. And I mean, everybody is so nice here and open to kind of just discussing things and getting to know everybody's just been amazing. So.
And that's a lot of people's first time experience. They're like, man, everybody knows each other. I'm an outsider, but I promise you there's not one person in the room who could name half of this group, right? Like it is, there's a lot of us out there. But I saw, Ashlyn, what about you?
Yeah, so I am sadly not from Arkansas. I grew up in...
Wait, did you say sadly not from Arkansas?
Yes.
Sadly, she's converted.
Wow,
She loves
she's
Arkansas.
converted. She is an Arkansan, y'all.
I grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and so... Exactly. So I, about a year ago, moved down here. I didn't know anyone here at all. I had been here a couple times, but wasn't super familiar with the area. A couple months before I moved here, I had looked up churches online and found the Social's Instagram page. And I was like, this looks awesome. I've got to try that. And so when the day I was moving myself down here, road tripping down, they had posted their little social podcast of that week.
I know, shocker, we have a podcast. We have one, I promise.
They had posted that, and I was like, well, I've got a lot of hours. I might as well listen to this. And it was all about, like, entering a season of change. And I so vividly remember Ben talking about how he's from Chicago and he moved here and he just was like, why would you not just put yourself out there? My natural bend is to not do that. But I was like, you know what, when else am I gonna have this opportunity? So I drove down on Saturday, and then Sunday morning I came to church, and I hid in the back row, and I was just gonna sneak out, but then Jeremy was standing at the little social table, and I went over and I was like, hi, I'm new here, and he brought over some Dream Team girls, and they just quickly took me under their wing, invited me to stuff that night, and it just became a decision of I just have to commit to saying yes to these things right now, even though it's scary and hard, but when else am I, like I said, gonna have this opportunity of being new here and fully getting invested to set myself up for success?
And I know that you talked to Izzy early on, but really for us, I didn't know that Ashlyn was not naturally bent that way because, I mean, this was a girl, she just moved here from out of state, knew nobody, and she comes up with me and is like, hey, I'm new, I want to get plugged in. I was like, wow, like, come on, like that's crazy, that's awesome.
And it was funny because if any of the ladies know, this last Sunday we had a women's gathering for our church, and there's like some B-roll for the promo video that she attended last year, and she was in it, and she was like, I didn't know any of the girls that I'm like smiling, laughing with them in that shot. She's like, but now all those girls are my best friends, and a year later, getting so plugged in, and it just goes to show like a lot can happen in a year. A lot can happen in a year to where now you're all in. You're up here.
But also it's crazy because, I mean, it is scary, right? It's scary just being out there, and it's easy to, try to jet right at the end and, like, not talk to anybody. And that's what you're going to get out of it ultimately if you try not to just go up to somebody and say, hey, let's be friends. Like, how do I get plugged in? Do you have small groups for me? That kind of thing. And it was it was maybe 6 months later that I first heard that it was because you listened to our podcast that you came up to us and talked to us. And man, it's just cool to see that. Carson, what about you? Tell us your story. How did you get connected?
I agree, it is terrifying. I'm terrified right now. But I kind of have a somewhat similar story to Ashlyn, except it was about 4 years sooner. I moved here from Texas, and through that, it was same thing, like
we have one from Minnesota and one from Texas. I know that's not true.
Yeah, thanks. So I moved here on a Saturday. My church back home in Texas referred Cross Church, and this was in 2019. And through that, went to church with my family in Fayetteville for the first time. And they went back to Texas after moving me in that Monday, or they left Monday. And then Tuesday, I was like, okay, the only way to make it in a new town is to meet friends. And just growing up in the church, I felt like the only way to do that was really find a new church. And so since my home church had referred Cross Church, Izzy was there, Cam was there. There was probably 30 people that night, and became instant best friends with Cam. And that was actually a part of C3 that was not a part of the social yet, but leading into this, towards the end of 2019, two people were coming to the porch at the time, Camille and Michael Yan, and they're like, hey, I think you would really enjoy this thing called The Porch. It's a growing young adult thing, it's new, and through this, I think you can really just get plugged in and connected with, some working adults, because I moved here for my job, so it was a little different being in C3 working and trying to make it in this world while other people were going to school, but I was around that same age, but it was also that same age of the younger part of the young adults, and so I showed up, I believe it was the last week of the 2019 season, and then a few weeks later, going into 2020, COVID happened, so that kind of threw a wrench in a lot of our plans. And I think really what changed for me, and I remember my parents were coming up to visit, and I said, hey, I want you to know that we have had no church for a few months in person, and tonight we're having something out in the field. Do you remember that, Jeremy? And there's like 100 people.
Was anybody else there for that? Raise your hand.
Aaron had.
There's a few. There's a few.
There was like.
It was hot.
Yeah, we went from
outside.
like 60 people in that 1 week at the porch in the soon-to-be coffee shop to like 100 people out in the lawn, and I thought, how crazy is it that God has grown this and we haven't even had church? And I think that was like kind of the driving factor that kind of put it in my head, like, hey, this is something that I think I could fit into. And then just as time has gone on, obviously just my schedule and all stuff. The life has gotten in the way, but I think now, really since the beginning of last year, it's like God has just opened a door for me that I don't want to walk out of. And it gets to the point where like, it's my favorite part of the week. You know, it's what I look forward to. I take off work to come here sometimes. And so, you know, sure, yeah. So, thanks. I am so nervous right now.
No,
The more Carson talks, the farther away he gets.
No, but what I love about that, Carson, is just like the voices in your life.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I stayed bugging you. I'm like,
Oh,
get
yeah.
over here. But I think that,
Izzy and Cam were my first friends. And I was in their wedding
They were.
like 6 months
I
later.
know,
And
it's
so,
crazy.
yeah, anyway.
But I think that's just goes to show the value of like persistence in community of like, hey, there's a good thing here. Just trust me and come, and not giving up on the people that are like, I don't know, because there's always be people that are like, I don't know if I want to try that yet. Just keep going after them because you know, and when you know, and you want to bring those people into just the family, into the community of it all. Okay, so all of y'all kind of share a little bit of like, now that you're on this side of being really plugged in, really invested, you're in the midst of it, like share the contrast of like what things were like when you were kind of maybe on the fringe or just even before. I mean, Ashlyn got plugged in day one. So even just like the anticipation coming in, or for Carson, you know, or Tim, you know, the time before really jumping in and really considering like what the contrast was between before getting plugged in and now that you're fully in. So Tim, why don't you kick us off?
I was going to think about that one for a second. But I guess the difference between starting it, because when I came last year, it became slowly part of my routine, coming every Tuesday night. I would come, every once in a while, I'd come with the guys, and it was just one of the things that we did. But I was fine missing a couple of them. And then slowly but surely, like, the Lord continued to work through this ministry in my heart, and it just became part of my routine. And so naturally the response and if you actually do pay attention and you listen, it's hard not to be called to move. It really is. Like if you do give in and you do let God work in your heart, he's gonna call you to move in some shape or fashion. So that took a little bit of time for me to actually lean into that a little bit. But what I can say now on this end is that it's just been a big blessing in my life. And I've learned so much. I've continued to grow by just, meeting all you great people that are out there that I can't see because of the bright lights. But it's been a fantastic experience overall, and I think God has continued to pour through you guys for sure.
And that's a good point of, we all have such different schedules. I mean, we're adults. A lot of y'all have really fancy jobs that I'll never understand how that works. But even like what Carson says, like when you find something good, you prioritize it. Tim, like your schedule, like when your life really begins to match, like, okay, what they're going after here and what I'm going after lines up, I want to prioritize having that in my life, because I don't know, for those of y'all who have moved here from other places, or if you're going to move at some point, this isn't really normal. And so what we're doing here and what we're experiencing is super special. And it's not because we're great party planners or anything. It's because God really has his hand on this ministry, in this place. And we are in a really, really sweet season of God's movement. So, Ashlyn?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, Izzy, of like, we can take for granted what we have here. Like, this isn't normal, like you said. But I think it's easy to think it's normal if you don't open yourself up to it. And so I think so much of it comes from like coming in, I was just like, I want it all. And then so you open yourself up to that, and then you receive all that. And then it's like, you like, I can't not have this, and I just want more and more and more. And then one thing leads to another, and you're like, get me in a small group, get me with the girl, whatever it is, and get me to lead a small group. And you just like keep going and consistently want more. And that's from an awareness of like, this isn't normal, and I don't want to miss out on this really sweet opportunity that we all have here.
The tucked away mic.
I feel like if I hide the mic, they won't ask me to talk. I kind of, just to piggyback both of y'all's, it's when you walk in, it's like the song we just sang. Like when I walk in, I literally have a peace that makes no sense. And I think that's just from, last year I had a prayer that was constant, really from February of last year, really to the end of summer, was like, God, show me what I'm missing out on. And I think just praying through that over and over, like I truly feel like expect God to move. He will move. It's just on his schedule. But you have to be available for that to be evident and shown. And I think I just remember like over and over meeting new people every week. It was like, you know, so-and-so, I saw them at the gym. They met me, or, you know, I met them for dinner, or if they were my waiter or my server, and they're like, so-and-so invited me to the social and, you know, to be a part of their small group. And it's like, I've been a part of this for 4 years, and like that's the one thing that I felt like I was praying for, but I didn't want. I didn't want a small group. I didn't want to be a part of one. And I think just over and over after meeting new people after new people, it was small group, small group, small group, small group. And I think through that, it was like, is this what I've been missing out on, that I've been preventing you from allowing me to want? And I think just like Izzy's like the best motivator. If you need any motivation, go to Izzy. If she knows you in any capacity, she'll make you feel great. And a few months back, we were talking, and she had just said, like, I can see change in you. And like, in a non-prideful, like, very humble way, like, that is one of the greatest things I think someone can tell you. But you have to show up and be evident and expect God to move in your life for that, for someone to come say that to you. And before, it was just, let me come in, and she knows. I sit in the back, like, let me come in, sit in the back, and leave. And like, oh, I didn't see you there. Well, I was there, but like, I just didn't want to be, you know, I kind of be like Batman in the back kind of deal. But yeah, like, I almost can't even look back sometimes. Like, I almost, you know, you put on your new self, and I feel like sometimes it's hard for me to even think like how I used to be because of how much I've grown just from showing up. And I think that, I mean, that's the forefront of it, is if you show up, God will move in your life if you allow him to. And I think just over and over, week by week, showing up, praying, and just saying, you know, God, this is the new door that I want to walk through. Don't let me turn around and go back through it. And yeah.
That's good. You know, Carson, it's just me, you, and about 300 other people here tonight. But where is it that you regret when you look back, when you do look back?
Yeah.
And you look back at you've been around, I mean, yeah, if you were here
while.
outside as the first time, that was a long time ago. I mean,
Yeah.
that was early COVID. I mean, early 2020.
I think it was like May. And like
Yeah.
even then, it was hard to even schedule that. It was
Yeah.
a long time ago. But
So if you could go back, what would you change?
I think recently I'm so grateful to be a part of a small group and be a part of the social, which I've been a part of it, but I didn't allow myself to fully be, you know, committed. And I think one thing that I'm grateful for that, but also there's like a part of me that's sad that I've waited this long to now be a part of it. And so I think, what was the question? Sorry. What was that?
You nailed it. Great
Yeah,
job.
like, yeah, whatever.
Well, okay, so many
Terrifying.
things. No, so that's so good. It's so good because you do want to look back and you want to think, okay, like, if I could look back to, you know, freshman year of college me, freshman year of adulting me, like, what would I want to tell myself to do? Like, the Ashlyn that just moved here from Minnesota, day one, moved here to be a nurse, and we don't know where we are. We got to pull out Apple Maps. Like, what do you tell that person of why they need to get all in, why they need to jump into getting connected, why they need to plug in, why they need to be a part of something like this? I'm not saying this is the end-all be-all, but something like this, and we're offering you an opportunity for that. But then also, what would you encourage those, maybe like Carson, that have been here, that are just have tolerated just showing up, sneaking in, sneaking out, and not really taking advantage of the benefits of being in a small group, of being in community, of being all in? What would you encourage, and what would be like your challenge to everyone in the room?
I would say invest in community and just really what community is as a whole. I think when you invest in community, you won't be wrong. I mean, you could always think of like, I could be off doing something different. I could be working, making more money. I could be out with friends doing something different. But when you really, truly, you know, dig in and live it out with community, it brings on a new side of you that you didn't know that you had. In a sense, and I think others do really bring out the best of you here, and I don't think I would have realized that without being here on my own. I don't think life is meant to be done by itself, especially the Christian walk is definitely not meant to be done alone. And I would have, you know, if I could have gone back and told myself, I would have definitely tried to hear myself out on that a little bit more, because I think for a long time I tried to do it by myself. I tried to live the Christian walk by myself, and it wasn't as fruitful. overall.
And we sometimes convince ourselves like, oh, I got it. I don't need anybody else.
Yeah.
Like, I can do this. I'm good on my own. But like you said, we're not meant to do that. Like, and other people need what you have to offer. Other people need your friendship. Other people want to be your friend. Not that you need them. It's both and. We all need each other. It's one of our core values here as a church is people need each other. And so that's key to just really getting so much out of what the Lord is doing here.
I think I've seen even how a lot of people like wait back and they're like, well, I just want to be invited to something. Or like, it's like, well, we got a lot of people inviting tonight, out there with Tailgate. So it's a great opportunity that you're here tonight. But also just as you invest, as you get involved, it's also putting yourself out there to say, hey, I'm also here for you. Right, and that's what friendship really looks like is when you have people it's a two-way street of, man, I'm here for you, and man, I need you to be there for me. So that's a really great testimony of that.
Yeah, I would say don't let your excuses win. It's like, what is the enemy keeping you from here by using your excuses? Like Izzy said, I'm a nurse, and when I first moved here, I was working night shift, and so for me, it was really easy. As much as, yes, I got involved pretty quick, there still was this line of that I was having a hard time crossing of like, well, I work Tuesday nights sometimes, or how am I going to lead a small group if I have to work every other Monday night? And it's like, I could have sat there with those excuses, but I was encouraged of like, well, what about the nights you can show up? And so when we say like, invest and you're going to get out of it what you put in, it's not even necessarily like a time thing, like it's a capacity thing. Like what are you bringing? What are you allowing yourself, like Carson was saying? And yeah, just don't let those excuses win.
Yeah. And it gets hard. It gets hard. Like, the excuses sometimes get super convincing, but you have to prioritize it. I know there are so many nights that Ashlyn would be, like, really just sad because she was like, I'm missing out on this. I want to be a part of it. I feel like I can't get as connected as if I was fully available. But the truth is you can. You can when you prioritize it and you give it to the Lord and be like, Lord, this is what I have to offer. My time might be these loaves and fishes of I've got 5 or 10 minutes, or maybe I've got an hour, I've got one free night a week. The Lord can multiply that not only in your time capacity, but also just in your heart. What God can do just on a Wednesday night in a small group could do such amazing, powerful things to carry you through the rest of the week. Not to say that small group and Tuesday night is meant to feed you. It's meant to supplement your feeding by yourself and growing by yourself in the Lord, but meant to grow you and supplement you in that. And when you prioritize that, I mean, the Lord could do amazing, amazing things. Carson?
I thought when I went first, that covered my part. But, I think I was reading a book a few weeks ago, and in the book it said a community of faith flourishes when we each have the expectation that when we look at each other that God can move in our lives. And then at the end of the quote, the author said, it's impossible to feel bored around such a community. And I feel like anybody that's ever been invited here, anyone that's invited to a small group or anyone that just to hang out, like, it's not just because we want to build this place up and make it, 1,000 people, 2,000 people. The success of this ministry runs off of when you leave here, what you can do outside of those doors. And I think for the longest time, I think just kind of going back to that prayer that I had, and I think if it wasn't for Ben having the expectancy that God could move in my life by going through my best friend Will and saying, hey, Ben's leading a new small group, come be a part of it. And like me saying, no, like you can ask Izzy, if you asked her 2 years ago if Carson House would be in a small group, she'd have said, no way, Jose. There's just
I think all of us would have said that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
is he going to be in a group?
Who even
No,
is that?
probably
That's
not. Don't even
Batman,
ask him.
you know?
Let alone leading a small group. Come on.
Yeah. And so I think I look at it, and every single time I come here, or even on Sundays, I feel like everyone just expects God to do something crazy cool in your life. And I think, like I said, if Ben didn't have that vision for me, and saying, hey, I think God can move in a way that Carson not only needs, but in a way that Carson can help others with. Like I said, leading a small group, that's crazy. Like, no one ever thought that, but.
It'll be great. You'll do great.
I am excited. Monday nights if you need one.
There we go. Check them out. Okay, last question. Speak to everyone who is in a small group or anyone who decides tonight, you know what, I'm doing it. I've heard from them how beneficial it is to be in a small group, to be all in. give us just some good encouragement or a challenge of what does it look like to take advantage of small group and be a good small group member, of really getting the most out of small group, what it's for. So, Tim, take it away.
I love being first. I would say, for me, small group has been the biggest game changer. Obviously, I love the social, but that was where I first started getting plugged in, and small group has just been the biggest blessing for me, and it didn't happen until I actually started to show up. And I mean, like, you can show up to small group, right, but you can kind of be there, and you can just read along and listen to what everybody says. But like actually showing up and being ready to receive whatever God has, I don't think there's any normal small group meeting. I think every single time we meet, there's just something powerful going on, and the discussions get going, get flowing, and I don't think you're going to get anything out of it unless you actually do show up in a way, and let God show up too, and let him speak. And so I'd say, and if you're already involved in a small group, let the Lord use you to influence others and to minister to others too. None of the small groups that we have are closed, I don't think. I think all of them are open to bringing more people into growing, into expanding. And if there's not enough room, then we start new small groups and we keep the blessing going. So I think this shouldn't be just confined to the church. This should be confined to the community as well, and expressed to everybody out there, not just us. So huge blessing.
I would say, and I've said this to my friends in my small group, but I would say just please do not bring your polished self. Like, truly, truly, truly come as you are. And like, when we're in discussion, like, say what you're thinking, say what you're questioning. Like, we're not all scholars, none of us are. And so like, what a missed opportunity if we're not trying to all learn and grow together. And so like, even with the Sunday sermon series that we're in, like showing up like so desperate for God to move doesn't look like showing up with your perfect answer of like, ooh, this verse is really good and this is what I think. Smile, the end. Like genuinely come ready to be like, I have no idea what this means. Can you please help me? And I feel like the nights that my group has done that have been like, sure, it's humbling, but there's so much growth in that.
Yeah, I would say leave your comparisons at the door as well. Walk in, just like she said, come as you are. God wants you as you are. And I kind of think of three questions, that I kind of want to see happen when I enter a small group. And it's, throughout this small group, am I getting pointed closer to Jesus? And then kind of the second thing is, am I helping others become closer to Jesus? And the third thing is, how can I just continue to make 1 and 2 the priority of that small group? And I think over time you get more comfortable, obviously, but kind of like going back to that quote towards the end, like it's literally impossible to be bored around a community that wants the same thing for each other. And that's to all be pointing closer to Jesus and to be more like him always, and to lead people closer to him. And I think it's kind of a prayer that I think we all should have, but it also goes back to that expectancy. Expectancy for the Lord does not just happen in church. It happens when you leave those doors and you welcome him in at all times. And I think, kind of all three of us said, just show up. Show up, come as you are, leave your comparisons at the door, leave everything at the door, and just bring everything to Jesus and leave. That doesn't contradict each other, I don't think, but yeah.
Also say it is fun too. Like, community is awesome because you get poured into, but it's like being in a small group with like a group of guys or a group of girls. Like, you guys get to go out and have ice cream, or we'll go play pickleball, which our small group's really good at pickleball, by the way. But that's beside the point. But also, then you have community nights here at the social, and you have time where you get to just be with people around the same age as you and just enjoy being in each other's presence. I think there's definitely, it's a gift from God for sure. So. Can't take that for granted.
So good. I'll wrap this up with this. I think you've heard an overwhelming theme. It's to invest, it's to put yourself out there, it's to be real, it's to be authentic, right? Like, this is something that we all are wanting. That's why you're here. You're here because we need each other, right? And we've been hitting it on Sunday morning in our series at Cross Church, desperate for God to move. But again, you've heard the theme. That doesn't just mean on Sunday mornings. That doesn't just mean on Tuesday, but we are desperate for God to move. We're also desperate for him to move in our small group. We are desperate for him to move. We're also desperate for him to move in our own personal time with him, in our workplace, in our apartment building. We need to be people. And here's what I want to just encourage us all with as we're just kind of closing tonight is my encouragement is let's be desperate for God to move in our life, in this ministry, in our small group, because, man, what a waste if we're showing up to stuff and we're not expecting to meet God there. Yeah. I mean, what a just a waste of time, a waste of energy, waste of resources that we're doing, but it's not because God is here. Yeah. And God is with us, and man, we have a God who loved us so much that he sent Jesus to come die for us that we can have hope in eternity and we can have life today. We can have fun. Like we can have a really great time with community, and he has given us each other to lean on and to love on, to get through really, really hard times and be able to celebrate together in great times. And what I also love is just about community, even this as a community, but also in your small group, is we're all going through different things at different times. Yeah. And sometimes it all hits at once, but usually it's like one by one after another. And man, in somebody's hardest day, you can look at them and be like, man, I was just there, and I'm here for you. I love you. We're going to see you through this. And then they're going to be there for you in the months to come. And so I just want to pray for us as we just close and just get ready to have a great time. But I just want us to pray together as a community, as a group, and say, like, let's be desperate for God to move in our lives and in this community. So let's do that together, and we'll bring closure tonight. God, I just thank you for what you are doing in this place. And God, we just love to have opportunities where we can stop and celebrate all that you have done and all that you are going to do in and through this ministry and these lives. And God, what a great reminder, Lord, that it is not about this place. It's not about this building. It's not about this time of the week. God, it's about you and what you want to do. And God, I am praying, Lord, in a desperate kind of manner, Lord, that we want to see you move in Northwest Arkansas, America, and the world for your glory. Because, God, you are worthy of it all. You're worthy of our praise. You're worthy of our devotion. And, God, you are worthy of our investment. And, God, there are a lot of things that we can put our hope in. There's a lot of things that we can invest in. And nothing is better than in kingdom work and in kingdom time. God, not just for others' enjoyment, not just for others' involvement, but, God, for us. So, God, thank you for what you've done in this place. And, God, as we just got to celebrate and look back at what you're doing, God, I know that, God, you're the God of the more. So, God, even tonight, would you encourage those who need to be encouraged? God, that if they're here tonight, they're not just welcome, but they're wanted in this place. God, we want them a part of this community because, God, you have such great things in store for them. In your name I pray, amen.